elderly billionaire spends every Christmas alone, until a waitress and her little girl knocked. And what happened next restored his faith in love, family, and the true spirit of Christmas. It was Christmas Eve in the heart of Chicago, and the world outside glowed under a blanket of snow. Inside a grand glass-walled mansion overlooking the city skyline, Henry Caldwell sat alone in a leather armchair beside a dying fire. His home could have hosted 100 guests, yet the only sound was the ticking of an antique clock and the faint hum of the heating system. Henry was the kind of man people read about in business magazines. Founder of Caldwell Biotech, a pharmaceutical empire known around the world. He had more money than he could ever spend and more influence than most politicians. But none of it filled the silence that wrapped around him every December like a shroud. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. Each year, he followed the same routine. Pour a glass of whiskey, sit in his study, and stare through the floor-to-ceiling windows as snowflakes fell like fragments of forgotten time. Outside, he could see warm lights glowing from houses below, where families gathered around their tables, exchanging laughter and love. His mansion, by contrast, stood still, elegant but lifeless. This Christmas felt different somehow. Perhaps it was the way the snow fell more gently tonight, or maybe the faint echo of children's laughter from the neighborhood below. Either way, Henry couldn't shake a strange feeling stirring within him. Something restless, something long buried. As the clock chimed 11, the memories he had spent years avoiding began to stir. 7 years ago, on a night much like this one, Henry's world had fallen apart. His wife, Laura, and their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, had been driving home after shopping for Christmas gifts when a drunk driver sped through a red light. The crash was instant. The news had shattered him beyond repair. The settlement money, the justice, the condolences, none of it mattered. Henry had spent the next several years building his company into a powerhouse, as if burying himself in work could drown the pain. He had achieved everything the world admired, yet he'd lost everything that gave his life meaning. He had never remarried, never celebrated another Christmas. Even his housekeeper and driver knew to leave him alone on December 24th. His home had become a mausoleum filled with art, awards, and silence. No laughter, no warmth, no love. Tonight, that emptiness pressed down on him harder than ever. Scene 3, Strangers in the Snow. Henry turned toward the large monitor that displayed his security cameras. His only window into the outside world. The snowstorm had grown fierce, the wind sweeping through his iron gates like a restless ghost. Then something caught his eye. A woman was trudging through the snow at the edge of his property, holding the hand of a small child. The two of them looked lost, the woman's coat dusted white with frost, the little girl wrapped in an oversized scarf. The child stumbled, and the woman quickly lifted her into her arms, spinning slowly as if trying to find direction in the storm. Henry leaned forward, frowning. They had been walking in circles for several minutes. The temperature had plummeted, and visibility was almost zero. No one should be outside in this weather, especially not a mother and child. He hesitated. The man he'd become, cold, reserved, distant, told him to stay out of it. But something in that woman's determined posture reminded him of Laura. She too had that quiet strength, the kind that tried to face life's storms alone, no matter how harsh they became. For the first time in years, Henry felt something crack open inside him. A soft buzz from the intercom broke the silence in his study. "Hello," came a woman's voice, crackling through the speaker. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but my car broke down a couple of miles back. My daughter's freezing and my phone died. Could we please use your phone to call for a taxi? We'll wait outside. We don't want to intrude." Henry's throat tightened. He couldn't remember the last time someone had asked him for genuine help. Not a favor, not money, but simple kindness. For a long moment, he sat motionless, staring at the blinking red light of the intercom. Then slowly he pressed the gate release. The iron gates creaked open against the wind. "Thank you," the woman breathed, relief in her voice. Henry stood, joints stiff, and made his way to the front door. When he opened it, a gust of icy wind rushed inside. A few minutes later, he saw them approaching, the woman holding the child close as they climbed the driveway. The girl's face was buried in her mother's coat, her small hands gripping tightly. The woman's hair was damp, her expression weary but still gentle. "Come in," Henry said, his voice rough with disuse. "You shouldn't be out there any longer." The woman hesitated, clearly unsure, then stepped inside, bringing with her the scent of snow and cold air. The child peeked out from behind her, eyes wide with wonder at the glittering chandelier overhead. The foyer, with its marble floors and towering staircase, seemed to swallow them at first. "I'm Grace, and this is my daughter Mia," the woman said, pulling off her gloves. "I can't thank you enough for letting us in, sir." "Henry," he replied simply. Mia tugged at her mother's coat, whispering something. Grace smiled shyly. "She wants to know if we're in a castle." Henry managed a small, awkward laugh, the first in years. "It feels a little too quiet to be a castle," he said. He led them toward the kitchen, where the warm light softened the room's sharp edges. As Grace helped Mia remove her snow-soaked boots, Henry poured milk into a pot and reached for cocoa powder he hadn't touched in years. "I might still have marshmallows somewhere," he murmured. Mia's eyes sparkled at that, her face lighting up with a joy so pure it made his chest ache. As they sat together, sipping hot chocolate, Grace explained their situation. She worked nights at a diner downtown and was studying to become a nurse. They had been on their way to her sister's house for Christmas morning when the car broke down. She had tried to walk the rest of the way before the storm worsened. Henry listened quietly, studying her face, the tired eyes, the determination, the strength hidden beneath exhaustion. She reminded him of the kind of person his company's medicines were meant to help, real people fighting to make something of their lives. Mia had been exploring the kitchen when she turned to him suddenly. "Where's your Christmas tree?" she asked. Henry froze. "I don't have one this year," he said softly. Mia tilted her head in confusion. "But how will Santa know to come here?" The innocent question landed like a blade through his heart. He had spent 7 years avoiding anything that reminded him of Christmas. No tree, no lights, no songs, nothing that carried even a trace of memory. Grace looked embarrassed. "Mia, sweetheart." "No," Henry interrupted gently. "It's okay." He looked at the little girl and smiled faintly. "Maybe I forgot how to celebrate. Sometimes grown-ups do that." Mia frowned thoughtfully. "Then someone should help you remember," she said in the matter-of-fact tone only children can pull off. Henry blinked hard. Laura used to say the same thing about him whenever he got too caught up in work. Someone has to remind you what joy looks like. The air in the room felt warmer than before. For the first time, Henry didn't mind it. As they talked, Henry learned more about Grace. How she worked 2 jobs to pay tuition, saved every penny, and still made time to read bedtime stories to her daughter. "Once I finish nursing school," she said quietly, "I just want to help people. That's all I've ever wanted." Henry stirred his coffee absently. A thought began forming in his mind, one that made him hesitate. "Grace," he said at last, "my company funds a scholarship program for medical students. Full tuition and living expenses. We're always looking for people who genuinely care about others. I think you'd be perfect." Grace's eyes widened. "Oh, I couldn't accept that. It's too much." "It's not charity," Henry said firmly. "It's an investment in someone who deserves it." Tears welled in Grace's eyes as she covered her mouth with a trembling hand. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Henry replied gently. Mia looked from her mother to Henry, her small brow furrowed. "Does this mean Mommy can help sick people faster?" Henry smiled. "Yes, I think it does." Something inside him shifted then, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. For the first time his wealth felt useful again. By the time Grace finished her call to her sister, the storm had worsened. The roads were closed, and the power flickered. "You'll have to stay here tonight," Henry said without hesitation. There are plenty of rooms. Grace protested weakly but eventually agreed. When the lights went out for a few minutes, Henry brought candles and suggested they order pizza, something he hadn't done since before Laura and Emily's accident. They ate by candlelight, telling stories and laughing when Mia got sauce on her nose. Later they found an old board game in the library, and the sound of laughter, real, unguarded laughter, filled the mansion for the first time in years. When Mia grew sleepy, Grace wrapped her in one of Laura's old quilts that Henry had finally felt ready to bring out. Watching them, he realized how much his house had missed this kind of warmth. As Grace tucked her daughter in, she turned to him. "Thank you. Not just for tonight, for everything. You reminded me that kindness still exists." Henry shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You reminded me." By morning, the storm had cleared, and Grace's sister managed to reach the mansion. As they prepared to leave, Grace hugged him tightly, her voice trembling. "You gave us more than shelter. You gave us hope." Mia, still half asleep, pressed a small drawing into his hand, a picture of a house with 3 people standing in front of a Christmas tree. "So you don't forget Christmas again," she said. Henry smiled through tears. "I won't." That day changed him forever. In the months that followed, Henry began visiting the children's hospital his company funded. He started speaking to young students about empathy and purpose. Every December, he hosted a dinner for scholarship recipients. His home once again filled with life and laughter. 3 years later, Grace graduated at the top of her class. Henry was there, sitting proudly in the front row as she received her diploma. Mia, now older, ran up to him afterward with a grin. "We saved you a seat at Christmas dinner," she said. When he arrived that Christmas, there was a tree glowing by the window, the same way Mia had drawn it. And for the first time in a long, long while, Henry Caldwell didn't feel like the richest man in the city. He felt like the luckiest. The greatest miracles aren't found in magic or wealth. They appear in simple acts of kindness that bridge lonely hearts. Sometimes all it takes is one knock on the door to change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. At Echoes of Life Stories, we believe in sharing moments that remind us how powerful kindness, hope, and second chances can be. Before you go, please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who still believes in the magic of compassion. Every story we tell is inspired by real emotions and real people, and your support helps us keep those echoes of humanity alive. Join our growing family of dreamers and believers, because sometimes one simple click can help spread a little more light in the world. Glowing Star. Subscribe now to Echoes of Life Stories, where every heartbeat tells a story.